Hello, my name is Anaya Ramirez, and today I'm going to be talking about the errorless learning process. I use this in my work with mostly the younger kiddos and such. However, I have learned that you do not only have to use it in the ABA field, you can also use it outside of it. I have used this with my son, and it has proven that it works. Errorless learning is just basically a lot of physical guidance. You kind of beating them to the answer, and it has to do a lot with like kids who can be a little bit slower, who like know it but just need that extra push kind of. With errorless learning, it can be regardless with like doing a puzzle, pointing to body parts, or it can be more with like the kids that talk a little bit more, like responding back to questions. It can be like, oh, what's your name? How old are you? What does a car do? What do we go to the store for? Like questions like that. So step one is to kind of already have that target, that goal that you are wanting to reach with your specific kiddo. Step two is just also gathering the information that kid may already know, and like past targets that he may already know, because you are going to be using stuff that they already know, just in case they can get a little stuck, or when you're going to use the early learning process, you can help them out. Step three is to bring in your kid and get them used to your touch. Like I said, when it comes to physical guidance, some kiddos do not like physical touch, so you kind of have to get them used to your touch, and it can take a little bit, but for the most part, most kids do fine. For those who have a harder time, it can cause them to go into a behavior, which is what we absolutely try to avoid. So once you can see that they're not still wanting to do it, you can kind of just back off and try again later. Step four is to then start. So the first one I'm going to be starting off with is the receptive part, which is like the questions and such. So example, for a kid, it can say they already know how old they are, 3. Now you're trying to get them to say like, oh, like what does a car do, which is drive. So you ask them, what does a car do? And they may say something other than what the car does, which is drive. They can say fly, and you can still give them the positive reinforcement, like, oh, like nice try, okay. How old are you? Then they say 3. What does a car do? Before they're able to say any answer, that's when you come in and you're like, drive. A car drives. And then you move on. Sometimes the kid still remembers, like, oh, drive, okay. So you repeat the process again. What does a car do? Drive. And then they say drive. And that's when you know that it has worked. For labeling body parts, it's a little bit easier because you can't, like, with receptive, you can't just cover their mouth and get them to not say it. It's a little bit easier, but kind of hard too, as it comes in with the physical. They already know how to touch their head. Perfect. So when you ask them, touch your nose, and they go and touch their ears, you're like, okay, nice try. Touch your head. They do it. Touch your nose. When they're about to go for their ears, you guide their hand to their nose right away. Grab their hand, nose. Good job. There you go. Repeat the process again. Touch your head. Touch your nose. Then they're able to realize my nose. That's my nose. Sometimes you may have to take a little bit longer with the touch your head, touch your nose, like that. Now with puzzles, I do have a puzzle here, but I don't know how I am going to show it. It's kind of basically the same thing with labeling body parts. If you see a kid is trying to put a puzzle piece where it does not fit, and they're kind of just over it and they just leave it there, that's fine. It's like, oh, nice try. Then you give them something else that they already know how to do. Touch your nose. What is your name? Anything like that. And then it's like, oh, where does it go? After you give them the puzzle piece, you guide their hand almost immediately to the correct spot where the puzzle goes. And you're like, good job. There you go. But yeah, that is just a short example of how errorless learning looks. It looks a little bit weird because I don't have a second person to do this with, but I hope you guys understood the concept of it. It's just beating them to the answer. They can get the answer correct on the first try. The second time, you just beat them to it and just help them out just a little bit, and until they understand. It looks faster, but it's not. It takes time, but I guarantee you that it will work if you are consistent, if you are patient enough. Thank you.